Hello, my name is Misiura. I will be performing The Boy by Patrick F. McManus. Sometimes I'd take the boy fishing. He was not my boy, but somebody else's, and that was good. His appetite and the cost of food being what they were. Mostly, I'd use him to hold down the bow of the canoe instead of the bag of lead shot I usually employed for that purpose. He was smarter than the lead shot, but not so much that you would notice. "I wonder what causes the tides," he said to me once. "The moon," I told him. "The moon! You expect me to believe that? You must think I'm stupid." I treated myself to a thoughtful pause. "The earth is round." "So? Everybody knows that. Just checking." The boy was about 16 that year, the year I used him for lead shot. Whenever he ran out of money, which was often, he would come down to my cabin on the river and work for me. Mostly, I would have him dig holes in the ground. When you own a cabin on the river, you always need lots of holes in the ground. I enjoyed listening to him complain about the pay because I knew I wasn't paying him too much. I preferred to err on the side of not enough because it would be wrong to spoil youngsters by paying them too much. Whenever he complained about the pay, I would tell him about my first job. I was 14 and worked for a farmer all one summer digging holes in the ground. The farmer was so cruel and sadistic that he had probably once been a commandant in charge of a slave labor camp. But I was the only one who suspected his previous employment. Everyone else thought he was a fair, kind-hearted, and decent man. But they didn't dig holes for him. "Work! Work!" the farmer would scream at me. About once a week, I'd get mad and resign my position. But then the farmer would come and tell my mother what a fine worker I was and that he wanted me back to dig more holes. He told her my work habits had improved greatly under his supervision, and now my pace was such that he could even detect movement with the naked eye. So Mom would make me go back to digging holes in the ground. By the end of the summer, I hadn't earned quite enough money to buy my first deer rifle. The farmer gave me a bonus to make up the difference. I was astounded. Furthermore, I became the only person he would let hunt on his property. "So," I said to the boy, "do you understand the moral to this story?" "No. It's a boring story, and I never want to hear it ever again." "Work! Work!" I hollered at him. Sometimes, when the fishing was good, I would get up almost every morning and rush down to the river still buttoning my shirt. But the boy would be there already waiting. I suspected he slept in the canoe just so I couldn't slip away without him. We would paddle off and fish the channels where the river merged with the lake. As we paddled, we would exchange our theories about the purpose of human life. My theory was that the purpose of human life was to perfect ourselves through learning and discipline in order to fulfill our cosmic responsibilities as part of the self-consciousness of the universe. He thought the purpose of human life was for him to buy a car. At the beginning of the summer, the boy knew nothing about fishing, but by July, he knew everything and had begun to advise me. "That fly you're tying is too big. Better switch to a 16 and go to a black gnat." "How do you know all this?" "It's easy. I think like a fish." Can't argue with that. He enjoyed teasing me because now he almost always caught more fish than I did. I would chuckle good-naturedly, swat the water just so at the paddle, and soak him to the skin. The boy had a talent for getting on my nerves. I could remember how peaceful it once had been, when I was a solitary paddler slipping quietly along the channels, doing everything just right, becoming one with nature. And the mosquitoes and deer flies. But now the boy was always there, yakking, advising me on fishing techniques, philosophizing about cars, complaining about the lunch I'd brought along and the pay he was receiving for digging holes. And then one morning, he wasn't waiting for me at the canoe. He didn't come over the next morning either, or the following week. It was a relief. I was glad to get rid of him. Having nothing else to do, I asked around about him the next time I was in town. Most folks had no idea who he was, but the lady who ran the groceries said she thought he lived out on such and such a road. Still having nothing else to do, I drove out to the road and found an ancient mobile home approaching terminal depreciation under some scraggy pines. No one was home. A man stood watching me over a nearby fence. "They's gone," he said. "Just packed up and left one day. Headed for Oklahoma. I'm from Oklahoma myself." "Oklahoma? Got any good fishing there?" "Great fishing. Glad to hear it." I went out fishing the next morning, but it wasn't the same. A boy works a whole lot better than a bag of lead shot for holding down the bow of a canoe. No question about it. About a week later, another boy showed up at my cabin, apparently having heard I was short a boy. He was a redhead kid with glasses that kept slipping down his freckled nose. "I hear you got some work here." "I do." "What's the pay?" I told him. He managed to stifle a hint of elation. "What's the work?" "I got all these holes I need filled up." "I guess I could do that." "Hey, what you doing there to your canoe?" "Oh, nothing much, just removing these bags of lead shot from the bow."